Hello, YouTube. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. I know it's the middle of the night for, I think, much of my audience. I'm here in Australia. It's 6:45 in the evening. And I was just actually just took a nap and woke up and was looking at email and such. And I came across a comment which got me thinking about this subject about the destructiveness of the idea of not being an individual and being one with everything. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a legitimate spiritual place for somebody who achieves enlightenment and proverbially becomes one with everything. That is a goal that we can work towards. But people are misunderstanding it. This idea has been hijacked by the reptilian collective, the New World Order, and it is being used to enslave people. But even if it weren't, even if there wasn't a reptilian collective that was using this idea in a destructive way, there would still be no shortage of people who believed that saying that I am not an individual, I am one with everything, they believe that by saying that somehow that would make them be spiritual or look spiritual. This isn't the first time this has happened. So before I get into the analysis of that, let's talk about the difference between these two. So the idea of not being an individual and being one with everything. There is a spiritual, mature, evolved experience and understanding of that. And then there is an infantile, childish, narcissistic, destructive, and self-destructive experience of that. And so obviously we want the former, not the latter. So let's talk about first, let me share with you the word individuation. I've shared it with you before. I've talked about it with you before. I may have even talked about it last time I was on. I can't remember. But being an individuated person is the goal of all true spirituality as well as all psychology. And people who suffer from mental illness, what they really suffer from is a lack of individuation. They haven't individuated. So what is this process of individuation? Let me write it down for you. Individuation. You can look it up if you want. So being an individuated person, what it means is that you have matured, that you actually know the difference between yourself and somebody else. You have created a self-empowered state where, as people say, if you like who you're with, there's no such thing as being lonely. You can be alone, but not lonely. And a truly individuated person may even want or desire the presence or the company of another person, but they're not necessarily lonely. Somebody who needs to be around other people all the time. Somebody like I can remember, one girl I dated many years ago, she always had the television on, no matter what she was doing. The television was on in the background all the time, going all the time. Even if it was on some, music station or whatever, she had to have something going on all the time. And it's because she couldn't tolerate being alone. And that is a sign of a lack of individuation. So when you're self-empowered within yourself, you know the difference between yourself and somebody else. And nothing that anybody says or does has the ability to control how you feel or what you do. Your value of yourself is not determined by anything anybody does or anything outside of you does. And this is another phrase that works for this, is called locus of control. So locus means the where something is located, the location of control. And so what we want is we want to have an internal locus of control. The way you know that you have an internal locus of control is that if somebody comes up to you and says, "I hate your guts," you don't, you can be hurt by that, you can be sad about that, but it doesn't affect your opinion of yourself. Your opinion of yourself won't change because of what somebody else is thinking or feeling. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying this cavalierly. I'm not saying that that's an easy thing to do. I'm not even saying that I could pull that off 100% of the time. I'm sure you've seen me not pull that off many times. So I throw that out there as an ideal, as a goal, but it doesn't mean that I see myself as having achieved that. I like to think that I'm making progress in that direction. But that's the idea. No matter what somebody says, no matter what somebody does, it does not affect your opinion or your experience of yourself. A truly individuated person, which now we're talking like, the Buddha, somebody who's truly individuated, when somebody, attacks them, harms them, betrays them, calls them names, tries to devalue them in any way, a true Buddhist, a true enlightened master would have compassion for that person. And what they would see is they would be feeling how sad for that person that they, are so unindividuated that they think they have to do something to me. But they themselves would be empowered. In a more down-to-earth way, it happens with people who, when somebody wants to accomplish something in life, they want to become a gold medal winner, they want to become a champion boxer, Mr. Olympia, I don't care what it is. They want to achieve some high status, very difficult goal. And when they lose, they pick themselves up and they say, "Yep, I didn't get it, but I know I can. I know myself and I know I can do it." When somebody attacks their character, or when somebody maligns them or insults them, they may be hurt by that, but they'll say, "It's okay, I know who I am. And I know that that's not who I am. And I know that this is their problem. It has nothing to do with me." Also, a truly individuated person is able to admit when they're wrong, when they do make a mistake, when they do act out of their lack of evolution, when they're not fully in their highest self. They're able to acknowledge that, and it doesn't affect their worth. It's okay with them that they weren't perfect. So this is an individuated person. They have an internal locus of control. Somebody who has an external locus of control is somebody who is easily angered, easily frightened, easily hurt, easily manipulated. So when those same people come up and say, "You're a horrible person, you're stupid," they'll internalize it, and it will change their view of themselves, their value. They will then need to do something to get back, some feeling of equilibrium, which either they will turn around and attack the other person back, fight the other person, or they will seek to appease the person or, chase after them to try and get their approval and their acceptance. And so this is obviously not what we want. This is an external locus of control. So when it comes to being at one with everything, both of these extremes are seeking this idea of being one with everything. But on one extreme, you have somebody who has a completely, totally external locus of control. And their desire to be one with everything is actually suicidal. They can't tolerate themselves. They don't like themselves. They hate themselves. They are extremely insecure. And so what they want is to annihilate their identity and feel at one with everything. And that is coming from a desire to be free of negative feelings. Because all negative feelings are a reflection on the self. When you're angry at somebody, you're really angry at yourself. And you're angry at yourself for getting yourself in that situation. So let's say you're dating somebody and they cheat on you. It's going to be very hurtful. That would hurt my feelings very much. And I would probably get angry about that. But people who get resentful and they spend time talking about how horrible that person is and I'm going to get them back, the person they're really mad at is themselves for getting themselves into the situation. But they're projecting it onto the person that they think did it to them. When in reality, they were just as responsible because your unconscious knows everything, by the way. So there's really no possibility to ever truly be deceived. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of deception going on in this world and there's a lot of good people who are being deceived. But there's a part of them that knows what's going on and they can't tolerate it. You know, this is why I have so much compassion for people who are still trapped in the matrix. People who are going out and getting the reptilian anointing. People who believe that if you don't get the reptilian anointing, their reptilian anointing won't work for them. These are people who have been deceived, but they also are choosing to buy into the narrative because to accept the alternative is too horrific. It's a really horrific understanding of the world. And there's no shortage of people out there. You know, I've said in the past, there are people who are right for the wrong reasons. And they're right for the wrong reasons because these are people who actually do have irrational conspiracy theories. They just happen to be right at the moment. At the moment, they happen to be right. So it's sort of a coincidence. Their irrational, childish, narcissistic, fear-based, driven fears, which would have been, in another time, would have been an irrational tinfoil hat understanding. It happens to now be true. But it's purely by coincidence for many of these people. They coincidence. A clock is right, twice a day, or a broken clock is right twice a day, by coincidence. But for people who aren't, for the average normal person, those who are still trapped in the mainstream deception, to actually accept what is really going on is just absolutely devastating. Your whole entire universe completely comes crashing down. It's a very existential. It's the ultimate existential crisis. It's horrible. Anyway, so I'm sort of getting off topic here, but let's go back to the two different kinds of oneness. So what happens with the Buddha, the true master who achieves oneness, who achieves nirvana? In order to achieve nirvana, they must first become individuated. And the way this is experienced is in childhood, when you are born as an infant, the job of the mother is to individuate the child. That is the mother's job. If the mother does not do this job, the child will become a narcissist. And so to the degree that somebody is narcissistic, it shows their lack of individuation. So when a child is born, the mother reflects back on the child without agenda. This is the perfect mother, of course, which doesn't exist. Which again is the symbolism of Jesus and Mother Mary. Whenever you see anything, any painting or any artwork that depicts the two of them together, like, there's the, Jesus and Mary, and Jesus is in her lap, after he's been crucified and he's dying. That the actual work of art, the statue, she's something like 10 times the size of a normal woman. She's larger than he is by far. You don't see that when you look at it, but when you actually measure it, she's like this giant. She's the proportions are all off, and that is actually for a reason, because she's representing the maternal in the universe. And for the child, the mother is this all-encompassing oneness. That's what the mother represents. The mother represents all-encompassing, all-engulfing oneness. And so what the mother does to the infant is the mother reflects back to the infant, without any personal agenda, who they are. So the mother is a mirror. And, you see this with mothers and babies. Babies will make a noise. The baby will go, ah, ah, and mama will go, ah, ah. She's saying, I see you, and I'm mimicking you so that you can see yourself, and that you see that your individuality is important, that you matter, that you exist. And the infant is rewarded for every feeling they have, positive or negative. Every sensation, every feeling. They're happy and they giggle, mommy giggles with them. They're sad and screaming, mommy holds them and takes care of them. They're hungry, mommy feeds them. They need to poop, mommy changes their diapers. Mom is there to reward them. In fact, when you teach kids how to poop by themselves, Johnny sits down on the baby toilet for the first time and poops. Yay! You applaud them for taking a crap. This is, nobody does that now. They tell you, close the door, turn the fan on. Nobody wants to be a part of that. But, a little kid or a baby poops. It's the most amazing thing. Look at that beautiful creation. That's how people become individuated. Because then what happens is, after they've gone through, 3 or 4 years of that, then what ends up happening is that they hit, after they're a toddler, they hit actual childhood, right around 4 or 5. And by then, it's totally different. By then, now the child must follow rules. The child must learn responsibility. And what that entails is being disappointed, not getting what they want, and learning how to experience what's called narcissistic injury. So whenever you don't get what you want, it's a narcissistic injury. It's an injury to your ego. And an individuated person, as I said, that's when somebody attacks you and calls you names, it's a narcissistic wound. And so how you handle that shows whether or not you're individuated. And again, I'm not talking about the denial. I'm going to share some comments in here, and you're going to see denial. People who claim to have no feelings, that nothing bothers them. And you'll see by their comments that actually everything offends them and bothers them, that they're the most sensitive people in the world. But they'll claim that nothing bothers them. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about somebody, you call them a name, they get hurt. It hurts their feelings. Maybe not. But it's not because they're invulnerable. It's because they're okay with themselves. So an individuated person could be hurt, maybe even get angry, maybe even get offended. but they understand that injury is a narcissistic injury, and they heal themselves. They self-love through that, and then they move past it. That person's opinion no longer has any weight with them. Whereas with somebody who doesn't have an individuality, who is not individuated, they never forget. They will never forget. And, this happens lots of times with me. I'll say something to somebody they don't like, and they'll come back months, years later and said, "You said this to me." And I'm like, "Really? I don't remember that. I don't even remember who you are." But they remember. They remember what some guy on YouTube said to them months or years ago, and they still haven't forgot it. So an individuated person, it doesn't stick, it doesn't hold. One of the greatest things that little kids learn is sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Or I am rubber, you are glue. What you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. Those are great things for kids to learn how to do, because it's a way of teaching them how to be individuated, because it's true. It's a very childish way of saying, "Wow, you're really projecting on me, aren't you? So this has nothing to do with me. What you just said is about you. That's how you feel about yourself. I'm rubber, you're glue. What you say bounces off of me and sticks to you." Another one in 12-step groups, they say when you point fingers at somebody else, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. Whatever it is you're attacking somebody for, that's something you don't like within yourself. It's all coming from that same idea. So when the mother successfully reflects back to the child then learns to love themselves in all of their feelings, positive and negative, comfortable and uncomfortable. They can tolerate a lot of uncomfortable feelings because it's okay with them. They're okay with their own feelings, and they're okay being an individual. And then as they grow up, they learn how to be mature, which means they know how to treat people well, how to play with others, how to share, how not to steal, how not to, be mean. They learn that because that's what individuation teaches you. I'm powerful within myself. I don't need to steal anything from you. I don't need to attack you. I don't need to fight back. I don't need to do anything. I can say I'm sorry, and I can say I forgive you. These are all signs of individuation. Even if we go into the Christian tradition, which of course I'm not a fan of, but whoever it was, Peter or whomever, asks Jesus, if somebody harms us, how many times should we forgive them? And Jesus basically says, infinite number of times. You forgive them every single time. It means that you don't have an external locus of control. What somebody else does is not a reflection on your value. So you can forgive somebody every single time. Anyway, so what about the other side? So when people, let's go back to the original, to the good one. When somebody who is enlightened achieves enlightenment, they then have an experience of being one with everything. But they are one with everything while they retain their individuality. This is Odin. Odin is the most profound example of an individuated person who has become one with everything. In the shamanic circle, what do you call that? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, the 8-sided circle. In the direction wheel, in the thunder wheel. In the northern direction, this is representative of the mist home. And it's also protected by the planet Mercury, and the god in the Norse tradition that would go there would be Odin. So if you want to connect with Odin, face north. Face north and light incense. Incense represents the mist of nothingness. And so Odin is the protector of the north. So if you want to take a shamanic journey to the northern world of the mist home, or the mist world, you want to call on Odin to be your guide. Why is that? Because Odin is the only one of the gods who's able to be completely annihilated, where his ego, his individuality is completely annihilated, and yet he still retains his awareness of his individuality. None of the other gods can do that. This is why Odin became king of the gods. When Odin sacrificed himself to himself, sacrificed himself, little s, to himself, big S, when he did that, this was actually a result of his complete individuation. And when he sacrificed himself to himself, then the runes, which means the secrets of the universe, appeared to him. And then he reached out for them. And screaming, it says, screaming, he took them up. Which means the screaming was the pain of the release of his small and narcissistic self. And so Odin has the ability to protect you when you go into the northern realm, because the northern realm represents energy coming into the three-dimensional universe. So the least dense of all of the energies, the least individuated, because when you go into the north, there's no things. There's just pure potential. It's pure energy. So if you were to physically walk into the mist home, if you were able to go into that dimension, you would actually come apart. You would completely, totally disintegrate, and you would cease to exist. Because that is the realm of no thing. No thing doesn't mean that it's empty. It means it's pure energy. So you would become complete energy. Now, this is what people fantasize about when they think about becoming one with everything. The childish fantasy of that is that you go and you're completely annihilated and you're no longer an individual. And the truth is that people that want that are people who can't tolerate their feelings. They have negative feelings. They're sad, they're angry, they're lonely, they're frightened, they're confused, they have self-hatred, they have all kinds of uncomfortable feelings. And what they really want is they want to escape their feelings. And they think that by becoming one with everything, that will relieve them of the pain of existence. And this is suicide. That's all that is. It's so when people talk that way, I can tell when somebody dislikes themselves and when somebody is seeking, is spiritualizing their desire for suicide, because they'll talk about the pain of existence and wanting to become one with everything. And so that's actually the childish narcissistic understanding of becoming one. But when Odin did it, it was actually a painful experience. The pain of becoming nothing. The pain of letting go of your attachment to your identity. But because he was so individuated, he was able to retain his identity and still connect with nothingness or oneness. So what ends up happening to the child who does not become individuated? This is what creates people who have mental illnesses like narcissism, borderline personality disorder, like that. People who have those kinds of mental illnesses suffer from complete lack of individuation. It means they have no identity whatsoever. And this is a horrific state of being. This is the ultimate painful experience. There is nothing more painful than not having an individuality, not having an identity. It's the worst experience you could possibly want. And so when these people seek annihilation. They're seeking the annihilation of the horrific pain that they're experiencing. Ironically, they have no identity. They want to be one with everything because they think it will bring them some peace. But the ironic thing is that their pain is a result of them not having an identity. And so as an infant, what happens is the mother does not reflect back to the infant, and or the mother has an agenda. The mother is a narcissist. The mother projects and sees herself in the child and will neglect the child. If the child cries, they can't tolerate the hearing the child cry, so they'll leave the room or they'll shake the child or something like that. As time goes on, they will shame the child. Perhaps they will abuse them, maybe physically, emotionally, but at the very least, they will neglect them. And then what ends up happening is that the child learns that their value only comes from what they do, not who they are. A fully individuated person, somebody who is actually enlightened and is one with all things, actually knows that their value comes from simply existing. And because they have self-generated value, they seek to do loving, compassionate, constructive things for other people. Because they are individuated, they have empathy. They are able to climb inside somebody else's experience and go, wow, that's what that must be like for them. And they're able to do that without judgment. Whereas the narcissistic child who doesn't have an identity will judge everything. It's their projection of their total self-directed hatred. They will project it onto others. So they will be mean, they will be cruel, they will steal from you, they will abuse you, they will call you names. And that's why with a narcissist, they're constantly manipulating people and they see everybody as an object. So let's go back to infancy. So the infant is one with everything in a narcissistic way. The adult spiritual master is one with everything in an individuated way. We want that one. But when people talk about the New Age idea of being one with everything, I don't have a self. I am not an individual. In fact, people get offended. And this happened twice. I'll read them, but this happened just this week, one right after the other. Somebody said, I'm not a person, and it's an insult that you called me a person. Another person said, I'm not an individual, I'm one with everything. And this is the infantile, narcissistic one with everything. In the infantile, narcissistic oneness with everything, it means that everything is an object in their world, that they are God. Infants think they're God, in case you didn't know. Infants, they don't see, everything is fuzzy. They don't see individual people, faces. They're just this ball of feelings and sensations, and everything is them. And so everything outside of them that walks around is an object within them. But these objects don't have any real substance. They don't have any experience or feelings. And as you know, this is what narcissism is. They see people as objects. And objects for them to manipulate and use for their own gratification. So the infant is seeking gratification of all of their impulses and their desires, and that's what they should be feeling. That is the job of the infant, which is why, we applaud infants when they poop their diapers. It's a wonderful thing. Look at it. Because that's their job. Their job is to have needs and feelings and desires, and their job is to have all of those needs and feelings gratified. The adult needs to be able to gratify their own needs. Ideally, they don't need somebody else to gratify their own existence, and that's what brings them unity. They no longer need anything or anybody else, but they have nothing but compassion, and they have nothing but empathy for others. Now, that's an ideal I haven't reached yet. If you have, my hair is off to you. If you're watching this channel, you probably haven't. I personally have never met anybody who has achieved that complete oneness of themselves. I haven't met anybody yet. If I did, I didn't notice it, probably because I haven't achieved that. So the infant is seeking gratification, and when they don't get their desires, their impulses met, they experience narcissistic injury. They cry. They scream cry for the slightest thing. The slightest discomfort will cause them to scream cry, which means this is the mother has to find a way to fulfill that need, to gratify that need. That's the mother's job, to gratify the needs of the infant. And so when somebody who has not achieved oneness, true individuality, and the oneness that comes from having an identity, when they talk about achieving unity, it means that you don't exist. Their idea of becoming one with the universe means that you don't have an identity. You don't have an experience. You don't have a consciousness. And of course, this is a projection. This is their projection of what they want for themselves, which is to annihilate their own individuality. And this is why people who are pseudo-spiritual use the word ego a lot. And they talk about, they'll talk about themselves, either, in their fantasy of and I'll share with you again the fantasy of they have no ego. And they think that's some positive thing, and it's not. You can't achieve oneness without an ego. You can't do it. But it shows, and they'll have lots of judgment for anybody who they perceive as having an ego. Oh, that's your ego. That's your ego talking. Ego just means I, means self. It's just the Latin word for I am in English, ego eimi in Greek, I am. It just means I. And it's a good thing. So let me get to the comments here, and then I'll elucidate a little bit more about all that. Oh, I gotta actually pull those up, don't I? So I'm surprised to see that anybody's on. It's got to be the middle of night where everybody is. All right, so let's go here. So I'm pulling up the comments. Forgive me. Just be a little bit patient with me as I pull them up. All right, so yesterday I talked about how important it is to have compassion for those who have not awoken yet, who have not been red-pilled. And how I take, when I talk to people who are still part of the mainstream narrative, when they still buy into all of that, they're still part of that reality. When I talk to them, I don't get upset if they get mad at me. I don't get upset when they get mad at me. I don't get upset when they're irrational. I don't take anything that they say or do personally because I'm worried for them. I don't want them to suffer. And, if people don't wake up, there's a real possibility of them going through some serious suffering, and I don't want that. So I also remember, because it was just, a little over 2 months ago that I was fully part of that. And I have compassion for myself. I don't have I don't have any, I don't have any shame for, not knowing what was going on. I don't have any shame for believing in a world where you have rights and where there people are good and kind and that things work, and there's things like governments are there to help you, and media is there to help you by giving you information. I mean, that's a nice world to live in, and I'd like to get back to that world. I'd like to recreate that world. We don't live in that world. We live in a world that is controlled by the reptilian horde. If you don't know what that means, go onto my Odyssey channel and look for my code words. We have a world that is run by the elite, and there is a takeover of the entire world right now. And there is, people are being forced to do things to themselves that are extremely destructive. And if they don't do it, they won't be allowed to work. They won't be allowed to travel. They won't be allowed to interact with people. You have families who are pushing away and isolating their own family members. There are people I know that when I talk to them, they can't help but cry because they can't go visit their relatives because they're not part of the club, if you know what I mean. And so these elites are seeking to dominate and control everybody. And if you're not part of the collective, then you're seen as an enemy. And it's very, very serious and very real. So why would I have anything other than compassion for somebody who's trapped in that? Because things are going to come down pretty bad for the collective. And I don't want people I love to be damaged by that. So I don't take any of it personally. I totally understand. I was there myself. So I'll read it again. What caused me to talk about whenever it was, yesterday or the day before. And the person asked this question because this was one of my videos where I was sharing that I was wrong, and that I now had awoken and I saw what was really going on. And this person says, what about when you attempt to inform someone of the facts and they tell you to grow the F up? Interesting how time always tells, for my energy is valuable and it was my choice, so I own it. If you can't remember, I was the microbiologist that attempted to inform you of the veil. I asked you to prove your claims, which again, what is he talking about? What claims did I didn't know what he was talking about. You didn't, you couldn't, and projected. I also welcomed you to Australia. It does not take a shaman to cite the present. I want you to know that you dishonored me, and that was, is, and will be on you. So this is somebody, obviously, I responded back to him, and I had a response, and I told him again. I said, grow the F up. Now's not the time to gloat. Saying, you were wrong and I was right. And because you disagreed with me, I'm, shaming you. You dishonored yourself. And, I responded however I responded. I won't get into that. And so he obviously saw that because he then wrote back today. And what he showed me was that, in my opinion, based on what I've read, I don't know anything else. I only know what he's written. And so whatever limitations I have or whatever inaccuracies I have, I only know what I've read. Based on what I've read, my conclusion is that he doesn't have a fully individuated self, and he is projecting onto me his self-directed negativity. Which is, again, one of the things I said to him was, if I've now awakened and I'm now in agreement with you, why are you not rejoicing with me? Why are you not happy for me? Why is it now that the only thing that you can do is, shame me and tell me, you were right and I was wrong, and that it was my dishonor for disagreeing with you? And I said, I didn't dishonor anybody. I was honest and truthful, and I told you the truth as I understood it. And that is the most honorable thing I can do. And it's okay with me that I was mistaken. If I'm a spiritual teacher, I have to assume that people are mistaken. Otherwise, I won't have anything to teach people. And I'm a student myself, so it's okay with me. And it will always be okay with me. I never want to judge myself for not knowing something. I want to act with integrity, and I want to act with maturity, and I want to act with compassion. And I have a lot of learning to do with that, but I'm also okay with that. So if I have self-love and self-acceptance and self-compassion, then it's going to be easier for me to have compassion for other people, because without that, I won't be able to have any empathy for other people. So this is somebody who doesn't show any empathy whatsoever. So he responded to what I said to him in that video. And he says, incorrect. I care you got there. And then he says, and again with the grow the F up, because I told him again, grow the F up. And he says, again with the grow the F up. He says, I'm good, mate. And one more thing. I am not a person, in all caps. Never have been, and it's an insult. A person is a fictitious construct, and I won't suffer it. And then he says, shame you. Are you ashamed? I wasn't shaming you. I simply don't have that power, nor would I want it. You said that I dishonored you. And then you said that dishonor was on me. So how was that not shaming me? So, come on. He goes on to say, it's on you. I don't waste my time on idiots. You, sir, he says, you, sir, are not an idiot. Oh, I had him wrong there. I thought he was going to call me an idiot. He says, I don't waste my time on idiots. And then he says, don't make claims you are not willing to back up. Again, I have no idea what he's talking about. I control my own contracts and I have no parental issues, for I am a man. I'm not angry. I have no issues. Not proud at all. All right, so this is what I'm talking about. For the infantile, I'm one with everything. That's the narcissistic expression of, see, because here's what happens with narcissists. I'm not saying this guy's a narcissist. I'm not saying he has NPD. He's being narcissistic in this moment. But a true narcissist is somebody who has no identity. They hate themselves. They have no value. They have no worth within themselves. And so in order to survive that horrific experience, they create a fantasy world where they are God and they have no faults. They have no faults. They are godlike. And so that's what they project. So this is why narcissists never make mistakes, all of that, and they can't tolerate being told that they're, anything about them is wrong or bad. So this is something a narcissist would say. If that's wrong, if it's bad, if it's unspiritual to have pain, to have anger, to have issues. Because let me be clear, I have issues. I'm continuing to work through still childhood issues at 58 years of age. I am still working to recreate and individuate myself, which is to overcome the narcissistic injuries I experienced as a child with my own mother and my own family. I have anger, I have sadness, I have pain, I have loneliness, I have confusion, I have self-judgment, I have all of those human things. So when somebody says they have no issues, I don't believe them. Because the person with the least amount of issues is the person who says, yeah, I have issues. I feel pretty good right now, but I'm not perfect. I have issues. If they run into that, they step into it, they'll say, I'm having a really bad day. I have this one issue that I'm working on. So when somebody claims to have no issues, no problems, this means that they actually do. They have big problems, they have big issues, but they can't acknowledge it to themselves and they can't tolerate the thought of you seeing them that way. So he says, I'm not angry, I have no issues, not proud at all. Then he says, all good, you have the right to disagree, but don't ever tell me to grow the F up. But I have the right to tell you whatever I want, because that's my honest feeling. I think you're being really childish, and I think you need to grow the F up. So I'm going to tell you again, grow the F up. Anyway, the idea that you can tell somebody what to think and what to say. So let me go to the next one. So we'll leave that guy alone. There's one that was a while back, and this was a completely different scenario. And this was somebody who, I'll just read it when I find it here. Let's see, where is it? Okay, so this is somebody responding to a really old video called Escape the Saturn Moon Matrix, which I should probably make it again, because now I have an even deeper understanding of that. So this person, what I wanted to focus on back with this other guy was his being offended at being called a person. And I called him a person because I didn't want to use his name. It doesn't matter. His name is not his name. His username isn't his username. It's clearly a made up one. And he has a brand new profile, which probably means that I blocked him last time around. So he created a new one just so he could comment and say, I told you so. But he says, I'm not a person, and I never have been, and it's an insult. A person is a fictitious construct, and I won't suffer it. That is narcissistic delusion. And this is part of the New Age religion of you're not allowed to have a gender, for Christ's sake. You're not allowed to have a gender. You can't be called her or him. Are you an it? I don't, listen, I'm okay with people doing whatever the hell they want with their gender. I have no issue with that. I'm just saying that you can't call somebody a her or a him. And it shows an unconscious narcissistic need to dissociate from your own identity. So the other thing about a true narcissist, and again, I don't think this person is a true narcissist. I'm not saying he has a mental illness. But somebody who does have that mental illness, they dissociate. I'll give you an example. There was, I just watched a series on, I can't remember what it was. It might have been Netflix or Stan or whatever. But I was watching a series on a guy who had multiple personalities, and it's a real person. And I was too young to remember who it was, but he was in the news and all that. And what caused him to have multiple personalities was that he was physically, emotionally, and sexually abused by his stepfather, horrifically, for years, and that forced him to dissociate, and he had something like 20-something personalities. And when the personalities are talking, they said, oh yeah, his stepfather hurt him, and so we put him to sleep, meaning the core individual self. And they asked, why did you put him to sleep? He said, because he couldn't handle it. It was too painful for him. And so in whatever way that they did, they got the original guy to come out, and he looks around and he's scared, and he says, is he here? And they say, who? Is my dad here? Because if he finds out that I'm here, he's going to kill me. So for him, he had just woken up. He'd been gone for years, which means that he had dissociated from himself. He had tried to take himself away from his own feelings. And so somebody who can't tolerate the thought of being a person, who thinks that it's an insult to be called a person, this shows a desire to dissociate. It shows tremendous self-hatred. And they want to dissociate from the idea of being an individual. Because, if you go back if you watch any movie or any TV show about a a robot who becomes aware. You know, there's more than a few where there's a court case where they're, you know, that trying to find out if the robot is a person according to the law. Because if they're a person, then they have rights. It means that they have self-awareness, they have rights, they have relevance, they have value. And once, you know, legally, they are determined legally to be a person, then they have the rights of the Constitution, etc., etc. So for somebody to say, I am not a person, it means that they don't believe that they have value, they don't believe that they're lovable, they don't believe that they have the right to exist. And this is spiritualized in the very new agey thing, and it's very popular for people to say, I'm not an individual, man, I'm one with everything. I don't have an ego anymore. I've gone past my ego. That's called dissociation, and it's not a good thing. People who are dissociated become narcissistic. The reason why narcissists don't have any empathy for other people is because they are dissociated from their own personhood. And so it's a projection. They don't see anybody as having any value, any worth, any identity, any feelings, because they themselves are trying to dissociate from their own feelings. And so the new age idea of I am one with everything, man, I'm not an individual, I don't have an ego. It really means I hate myself so much that I can't tolerate my own existence and I want to destroy, I want to annihilate. Somebody even said at some point a long time ago, somebody said, what I want to do is become one with everything and annihilate my ego. And I said to them, that's suicide. That's not spiritual. It's the opposite. And the ironic thing is that people who say that, who want to present themselves as being one with everything, I don't have an individuality, I don't have an ego, those are the people who are the most destructive. And again, this guy can't help but attack me, you know, and control me and tell me what I can and can't think or say about it. All right, so that's one guy. So let's look at the next guy. And this guy, to his credit, he's not doing anything harmful to me. I'm not trying to attack him. I'm not going to mention his name. But it came up in response to one of my older videos. Did I pass it already? One of my older videos about the Saturn Moon matrix. There it is. And so I must have said something about flat earthers, and I'll say it again. So I don't know what exactly I said, but I'm sure it was along these lines. Flat earthers fit into this perfectly. The whole idea of needing to be a flat earther has nothing to do with wanting to know the truth about science. Nothing. Being a flat earther is a religion. Because you'll find flat earthers, the basis for their scientific belief is based on some kind of spiritual. And the religion behind being a flat earther, you know, what binds them together is not science. Because the truth is that flat earth science doesn't have a working model. So a working model is you have a theory about how things work, and then you test that model by doing different things to it. What happens when this happens? What is the reason for that? And if your model works, it will have a logical response for whatever the question is. For instance, the model that science has, actual science, is that the world is a globe, and that it spins around an axis, and that it orbits around the sun. So what ends up happening is that we have these seasons. Excuse me. And the reason that we have seasons is that the world is tilted on an axis. And during one half of the year, the bottom side of the globe is closer to the sun. And at the other side, the top half is closer to the sun. That model works. It explains everything that happens without any flaws in it whatsoever. It completely explains everything about how the seasons work. The globe, spinning on an axis explains night and day perfectly. It explains the time shift, that why in California, you're 3 hours behind the East Coast. Well, that's because the world is a globe, and it has a curve to it, and the sun is hitting one side more straight on than the other. And on the other side, it's dark now. It's dark now here, but it's light, in some places in the world. That model perfectly works. You don't have to come up with any strange scientific stuff to figure that out. Gravity makes perfect sense. That's why the Earth is a globe, because gravity brings everything. It's a working model. Flat earthers don't have a working model. They have to come up with all kinds of really strange reasons to explain stuff that's easily explained by saying, oh yeah, the gravity exists and the world is round. Problem solved. So this has nothing to do with science. To be a flat earther, it doesn't mean that you've come up with a scientific model that works. It means that you want to rebel against the authoritative view. It's all about rebelling against authority, which is why flat earthers are talking about how they've been lied to. This is, by the way, one of the reasons that I was so resistant to understanding the truth of what's going on, because it sounded so much like it, but it happens to be true. We're being lied to about certain things. And there is a conspiracy to lie to us about certain things. So the flat earthers believe that there is a conspiracy among the intelligentsia to lie to everybody for some reason that none of us can really figure out, that the world is round when it's really flat. So it's a religion, and it shows their unconscious projection of needing to rebel against mommy and daddy. And I feel pretty confident that a lot of them have mommy and daddy issues, that they're really angry at mommy and daddy, and they're rebelling against anything that they perceive as being authority. So this person says, we go back and forth about, being a flat earther and all that. And I said to him, and I was trying to be, I was being kind of snarky, but I was trying to be compassionate, and I was saying, what did I say? Let's see. After listening to him go on and on about stuff I don't agree with, he says, I say to him, look, I don't care what you believe. If you need to believe in the flat earth to get some feeling of individuality, go ahead. And I meant that. Because my honest feeling is that this is a guy who doesn't have any individuality. He doesn't feel seen. He doesn't feel heard. He doesn't feel loved. He doesn't feel relevant. And so this is his way. By rebelling against the powers that be who are lying to us about our reality, he gets a sense of individuality. And that is something that I feel compassionate about, and I also share that desire. I go about it in a different way. But the desire for him to want to feel like an individual, I actually support. And I was, saying, listen, believe whatever the hell you want. Whatever gives you self-empowerment, go for it. I honestly don't care. His response was, I never said I was an individual. We are all one. I had a snarky but good response to him, which was, you don't believe you're an individual. Well, that's the problem then. You are an individual. When you figure that out, the world will become three-dimensional again. And as snarky as that is, I mean that. I mean, there's a lot of things that I say that are snarky, but I never throw them out there without any meaning. Because I absolutely mean that. When you figure out that you're an individual, whoever you are, not just this person, but any of you, myself, When I realize my individuality and I become individuated, the universe then becomes three-dimensional. In other words, it's not two-dimensional, it's not flat. The narcissist sees things in two dimensions. The narcissist sees that there is me and there is you, and you're just an object and I'm the only person that exists. A three-dimensional person says, I exist and you exist. When I tell people that, everything is your projection, people ask, well, how is that possible that everything is my projection? Does that mean I projected you? And I say, yes, I am your projection. The reason why you're watching me is because you needed to have a symbol to tell you what you already knew, and you're ready to hear it, and you projected me, you created me, and I'm now in your universe to give you the message your higher self already knows and you're ready to hear. And at the same time, I projected you. Both, and you can, people have a hard time in the beginning understanding how can both of those things be true? How can light be both a particle and a wave? It just is. This is what I mean when I said to him, that's your problem. You don't believe you're an individual. That's the problem then. You are an individual. When you figure that out, the world will become three-dimensional for you again. And I meant that. And I still mean it. So this idea of not being an individual, I'm one with everything. It sounds really righteous, but it's extremely narcissistic, and it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Narcissistic. We'll just leave it at that. Grandiose. That's the word. Grandiosity. Grandiosity is Jehovah. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. If you follow every single one of my commands to the letter, then you love me. And if you don't follow every single one of my commands to the letter, then you hate me. And if you hate me, I must destroy you and throw you in hell. That's grandiosity. And so people don't realize that when they say, I'm not an individual, I'm one with everything, they don't realize how grandiose they are. That they are beyond being an individual, that they're beyond having feelings and needs and desires and impulses, that there's nothing left for them to learn, that means that nobody else is an individual, that nobody else matters. That's a projection onto everybody else. But true unity with everything says, I completely, totally have found myself, and in finding myself, I now see you. I see you, and I celebrate you, and I seek to empower your individuality. You go get them, tiger. But the grandiose, false, new age, I'm one with everything person says, I have no ego and you shouldn't have one either. Oh, this is what Christianity does. Christianity's, like the Amish, right? Amish can't even wear buttons because it shows too much ego. They can't take any credit or any joy for anything that they do because that's ego. That's, the Christian and Judaic idea of taking glory away from God. Like somehow you experiencing and enjoying yourself, you're taking away God's glory. Well, why did God create human beings? To glorify himself. So it's okay for him, Jehovah, to have all of this glory and have all this narcissistic grandiosity, but you better not appreciate anything about yourself, because if you are, then you're unspiritual. You have an ego. So people think they're being all new agey. We're moving into this new spiritual direction away from all that, but they're saying the exact same thing as all the religionists, which has everything to do with the matrix, the reptilian matrix that is being forced upon us. Says, do your part. Become one of us. Do not be an individual. Do not resist. In fact, if you don't do what we tell you, we won't let you eat, we won't let you work, we won't let you travel. That is the ultimate in the New Age religion of become one of the collective. It's as communist as it gets. You don't get to have a job, you have a purpose to fulfill. If you haven't watched it yet, watch the Amazon series Utopia, the one that was made in 2020 with, I forget his name. Watch that, because when he says, what have you done to earn your place in this crowded world? He's saying you don't have any value. And this is what the reptilian elite that is controlling our governments and controlling our world, this is what they're saying. They're saying, become one of us. If you're not one of us, we have to destroy you. Don't have an identity. Don't be an individual. You know, this is what they call virtue signaling. You know, I'm going to show people how good I am because I'm part of the collective. Aren't I a good person? All right, so I think I've said everything I want to say about that. I'm happy to see that there's a bunch of people here. I do take questions. This is a question and answer. If you have a question, write the word question in all caps and then write your question, or share an honest feeling. Otherwise, you run the risk of me psychoanalyzing you. If you don't want me to do that, don't say anything. Having said that, you're welcome to say whatever the hell you want. I may not respond. Vincent.thunderwizard.com says hello. He is one of my apprenticed astrologers, and if you want to become an apprenticed astrologer and have your own web page on my giant network of websites, you can go to lockdown.thunderwizard.com and thunderwizard.com, and you can also become a certified astrologer if you pass the very simple test. And I'll give you your own web page, and if you come on here and say hello, I'll advertise your web page for everybody to see. All right, and then there's drjweird.thunderwizard.com. He is also one of my most recent certified astrologers, and you can see him there. You can see all of them if you go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. Astrology is a really great way, Vedic astrology, other astrology too, but Vedic astrology is a really great way to individuate, to become a self-empowered individual. It's okay to be different from the next guy, and to find out how the energies work directly with you and what you can do to maximize your expression in the world. Let's see, what else? Thundra's question: what deity would most represent individuation? I don't know if I have the answer to that question, but I think I said earlier something about Odin. I think Odin is probably as good as it gets. He might not be the only one, but he's damn good. Okay, what else? Anything else? And then there's Riho. For some reason, his thing didn't get on there. Riho.thunderwizard.com. He is also one of my astrology apprentices. So you can see him there on Thunderwizard or astrology.thunderwizard.com. And he has his own website, riho.thunderwizard.com. All right, Lushka, question. Mahadeva, I want to commend you for your recent awakening. It takes a lot of... Okay, that's not a question. All right, it's not a question, so that's what I want. I appreciate the compliment, but I don't need to... You know, this is the thing about me. Of course, I want everybody to love me. I want to be loved and appreciated and respected, but that's not why I do this. So, you know, I've come down really hard on people who have given me wonderful compliments. I'm not that I'm going to come down on Lushka. Anyway, Lushka, you're getting lazy. You write the word Q. Please write the word question, the whole word out, because otherwise I might not see it. That's why I ask you to do that. And I do get annoyed when people don't follow my directions. But part of the reason for that is because I don't want to miss your question. You say, I have my whole family who have taken the ointment, but it doesn't matter as far as... All right, that's not a question. Riho Rasta, question. You have said that you do not like Western magic. What are your reasonings? I am trying out some of the practices of Danyan Eccles using archangels. Sorry for asking about other teachers. Yes, I don't like it when people ask me about other teachers, but you're not asking me about other teachers. You're just sharing that's who you work with. So that's different. If you had said, what do you think of? I would say, don't ask me about other teachers. I don't know. Well, if you're enjoying it, what difference does it make? If you feel the need to try it out, then there's obviously something that you want to get from it. So I would say don't worry about what I think. I have reasons for why I don't like it, but I'm far more interested in you finding what works for you. And if Western magic works for you, I want you to do it. So I'm not going to tell you my reasonings because I don't want to darken your day. Go enjoy Western magic. There's no shortage of people that, listen, I'm not the only game in town. I have what works for me, and of course I think my way is best because for me it is best. You go ahead and do your own thing. Doesn't matter what I think. All right, let's see. Eagle Eye, question. Would not the blue screen from all technology be I don't know what that means. Would not the blue screen from all the technology be the purposeful, perpetrated I don't know what that means. 360 Eagle Eye, question. Are our issues part of facing inward of the dark night of the soul? What is the difference between spirit and soul? So 360 Eagle Eye, are you new to my channel? You're asking questions like somebody who's new, and that's okay. People can be new, nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't give me the feeling that you've understood what I teach or practiced any of the practices that I give you. You're asking, in my experience, very superficial intellectual questions that don't really serve you. Are our issues part of the facing inward of the dark night of the soul? I think it's a lot more deep than just having a dark night of the soul. For me, it goes deeper than that. What's the difference between spirit and soul? There isn't a difference. There doesn't need to be. It's just a word. So anyway, I'm sorry that I didn't answer your question, but I encourage you to watch more of my stuff and to do the practices that I teach. Do some of the energy work. So if you're new to the channel, that's really what's most important. All of the stuff that I have here, all of these links are here for a reason. And it's great that I have all this talk about stuff, but my talk is just a bunch of blatherings. The best that I can get from that is maybe inspire you to connect with something and then go do the work. This is the 90-day challenge is the one that I recommend everybody do. If you go there and to thunderwizard.com and you subscribe to the Warrior 90 Day, you will be given access to videos where you can just press play and follow me as I do these exercises. And if you follow them in the schedule that I give, I guarantee you will have a transformation of awareness, a transformation of self. And then all of the talk is meaningless. Let's see what else. Is there another question? I don't see a question. People saying nice things. Zerlath has an opinion about something. Wild Soul, you're new to the channel, right? Santos Bonacci is saying that the world is flat and he seems pretty convincing. And? What's your point? Are you telling me that you are very easily swayed by somebody's convincing speech? Is what matters to you that somebody is convincing? This is actually kind of important. because this is part of it. Now, I'm 58 years old, so as much as I want to be young, as much as I want to walk down the beach and have 20-year-old girls look at me and think, gosh, I'd like to go out with that guy. As much as I want that to happen, it doesn't. They see an old man. Wow, he's strong for an old guy. That's the best they're going to say about me. So things are different. I came from a different time. I came from a time, the reason why I was so easily manipulated and deceived by the reptilian horde and the mainstream media was because I grew up in a time when there actually was a thing called independent news, where actually you wanted, I mean, people would wake up in the morning, because we didn't have internet, and people would wake up in the morning and they would go down in their, I mean, it was a daily routine. Everybody did it. You walked in your bathrobe and your slippers and you walked to the edge of your driveway and you picked up this newspaper and you went inside and you took the rubber bands off and you opened it up and you looked and you read, you voraciously read the newspaper. Because the newspaper, the way the newspaper made money was that it was independent. The Los Angeles Times was different from the New York Times. They weren't the same thing at all. But they were both had stories. And the way that newspapers made money was they had the scoop on the truth that you didn't know. And so the way they made money was to have investigative reporters who went and investigated the truth and spoke truth to power and revealed the corruption of the politicians or whatever it was. And that doesn't exist anymore. So it was very easy for me to listen to MSNBC and all of that, because I grew up in a time when you actually listened to Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite told you the truth and you knew it. They don't have that now. So people now don't know what the truth is. So the only truth that they have is their feelings. And Wild Soul, what you're saying is that you have an emotional experience when this guy talks and it sounds convincing to you. You didn't say anything in there about it being the truth. And this is a sad thing when I hear the young folks, when I hear young people say, I don't know who to believe. Part of the problem is they don't know how to determine the truth from the false. I know how to do that. I wasn't doing it because I was buying into stuff because I had an emotional attachment to the way the world used to be. But now that I know that the world isn't anything like I thought it was, I'm still pretty good at figuring out the true from the false. And I don't have an agenda. I don't need for my beliefs to be true. I'm totally open to being wrong and to be educated about what is really going on. And the more I do that, the more frightening it is. And I don't like it. But what you said, Wild Soul, is that he seems pretty convincing. But you didn't even say that I believe he's telling the truth and I want to know the truth. You're getting attached to a personality, which means that this is, again, part of the, forgive me for saying so, this is part of the childish narcissism that is created in this world that we live in. We live in this, the communist state is taking away people's ability to determine for themselves the ability to know the true from the false. And I tell people people don't know how to, well, I'll just tell you. If you want to know how to research a subject, here's what you do. You try to debunk it. So what opened me up was that I tried to debunk something somebody had shared with me. And as I went to debunk it, I actually confirmed that it was true. And it was horrific. I didn't want that to happen at all. But I wanted to know the truth more than I wanted to feel good or to feel safe. So, in other words, if you want to find out if the world is flat, here's the easiest way to do it. And I know when somebody hasn't done it because you could easily debunk flat Earth. It's the easiest thing to debunk. So go onto YouTube and type in Flat Earth Debunked. Watch as many videos as you can about people from scientists, because you'll find videos from scientists debunking flat Earth things. So if you're just going to Santos Bonacci, and because you're not a scientist, I know you're not. I know you're not an astronomer. I know you're not a physicist. I know you're not a scientist. You are convinced by somebody's, says A plus B equals D. Here, I'll show you again. A plus B equals D. And it's D because A is this and B is that. And they could be totally wrong, but they say things that sound rational. It makes sense. It follows a logic. They talk to your fears. There's no doubt in my mind that Santos Bonacci, whoever he is, talks a lot about how you're being lied to by the scientists. Actually, we are being lied to by scientists about a lot of things right now. But there's no doubt that you are attracted to the idea of yeah, that's right. They're lying to me and I'm not going to let them do that to me. There's no doubt in my mind that that is part of what feels convincing to you. So I give you that challenge. First, acknowledge that you have an emotional attachment, that you like the idea of the flat Earth, that you like the idea surrounding it, that there's a group of people like you that's going to rebel against those people that are lying to you. That gives you a feeling of safety, of power, of control, which is what we want. It feels good to have that. Acknowledge that you have that feeling, and then go and try and debunk it. Go onto YouTube and type in Flat Earth Debunked and listen to every single one of those professors and scientists and find out if they aren't able to debunk it. Now, if you try to debunk something and you actually end up confirming it, then that doesn't mean that you've figured out the truth, but it's a move in the right direction. So again, it shows, and I was going to get an example. So this guy who had multiple personalities, his father had sexually and physically abused him for years and years and years, and he developed multiple personalities, and he dissociated. When they were talking to him, the father, years later, and they said that, your son, so-and-so, he says that he developed multiple personalities because you sexually assaulted him over and over again. His response showed that he was a narcissist, which actually confirmed to me that he did actually abuse his son. And that was, he said, well, if I had been doing that for so many years, then somebody would have figured that out. That's my feeling about it. That's important. He said, that's my feeling about it. So here's how narcissists work. Narcissists, if they have narcissistic personality disorder, if they're a psychopath, like people who do that, people who commit murder, people who, somebody who sexually assaults a child for years and years and years, it means that they are severely damaged themselves. And because narcissists don't have an identity, they dissociate from their identity, which means that every night when they go to bed, and during their sleep, their hard drive is erased, meaning their identity to what they did that day is gone. They wake up the next day and it's a brand new day. They may have a memory, like a movie, about somebody that looked like them and talked like them, doing something like, abusing somebody or stealing something or, committing murder. They might have a memory that somebody like me did that, but I don't identify with that. That doesn't feel like me, therefore I didn't do it. Donald Trump is a great example. And I believe Donald Trump is a narcissist. He says, many people have said, he'll do that over and over again. In order to prove to you that something is true, he'll say, many people have said, and many people believe that. That's because he can't tell the difference between an actual fact and a feeling that somebody has or something that somebody has said. So what narcissists will do is, in the moment, they will do something that they know is wrong. They will attack somebody, they will hurt somebody. In that moment, they know they are doing wrong, and then what they do is they lie to themselves and they create a story about why they had to do that. That same guy was saying, yeah, my stepson, he was always a problem and he never did what I said. He was just so difficult to deal with. So he's creating an emotional justification. In other words, he didn't finish it by saying, so that's why I abused him, because he never did what I wanted. But that was the message. The message was that kid was just so, disobedient that, in other words, he deserved it. So when he said, well, if I had done that, because he didn't say I did or I didn't, I remember I was there. He didn't say that. He said, well, if I had done that, for years and years, somebody would have found out, and they didn't. So obviously that means I didn't do it. That's my feeling about it. So a narcissist operates from whatever feeling they have in the moment. And if they have a strong feeling that you're out to get them, if they have a strong feeling that they're innocent of something, or if they've told themselves over and over again, they develop an emotional reaction to that, and they say, my feeling is I didn't do it. So what you're saying, Wild Soul, in a much less way than that, I'm not saying you're a narcissist. You're saying that so-and-so says this, and it creates a feeling in you. And what's more important to you is the feeling rather than the truth. And this is a result of what's happened in the modern internet age. The modern internet age has created a narcissistic experience. It creates this cocooned experience that you don't have a connection to the real world. You only have these screens. And people can't tell the difference between what happens online and what happens in reality. So that's why a lot of people can't figure out what the truth is. Because they don't know how to separate their emotional response to something, and their survival depends on their emotional interaction with the world. Again, this is very childish. This is very infantile, and this is where the New Age idea of I'm one with everything, I have no ego, comes from that same idea. It's a projection of what they want to be true because they can't tolerate having their feelings and being disconnected and being frightened and feeling alone, and they can't tolerate the self-hatred and the feeling that they don't belong and they have no relevance and nobody hears them. And so they want to annihilate their ego and become one with everything. Rio Wasta question. I have done the Warrior 90-day practice with full force every day with very powerful mantras for a long time now. Do you have any recommendations how to induce any mystical experiences? No, I'm not seeking to create that in you. This is kind of what I'm talking about, Rio. I don't know why you want to do that. Don't get me wrong. I do understand why you want to do that. Everybody likes to have experiences. But it's not really what I want. So what I'm getting from that is that you're not having experiences from doing the Warrior 90-day or the mantras. So I'm sorry about that. I wish I could, give you a booster shot, so to speak, to give you a more powerful experience. But for me, my answer to that is, you might want to look into doing the Maoshan 5-element forums, the maoshan.thunderwizard.com. Now, I'm not saying you have to. I'm only going by what works for me. So that stuff, every time I do that, I get a really serious high from it. I have very powerful mystical experiences from it. I'm not guaranteeing that you will. I'm actually kind of mystified that the feeling I'm getting is that you're not having those experiences with the 90-day or the mantras. It's okay with me that you're not, but that was one of the reasons I created it. So in fact, I challenge anybody listening to me, I challenge you to do the Warrior 90-day Lightning Qigong. I challenge you to do it and not have an experience. It's okay with me if you don't, though. So my recommendation, if you want to, based on what I know, is to graduate to the 5 elements. But at the same time, it makes me wonder why the stuff you're doing, or is it that you did have powerful experiences and you want to go beyond that? I'm not really clear why you're asking me that. So, but it's not about inducing an experience. If you do it for that reason, if that's your only reason for doing it, you're gonna sabotage yourself. Because it's like going out. It's like if you go on a date with a girl, right? Or you have sex with a girl for the first time. If you have really high expectations on wanting to have the best sex ever and it's not what you wanted, then you're going to talk yourself out of a really great relationship, perhaps. There are mantras that I can do that give me powerful mystical experiences, but my external life goes to hell. So just because you have a powerful mystical experience doesn't mean that it's going to be the best thing for you. The mantra that I do, I don't have any experience. It doesn't give me any experience, but my life gets better when I do it. So that could be a misunderstanding of what mantras are for. Mantras aren't about giving you a mystical experience, but if you have one, there's great. That's great if you do, but that's not what they're there for. They are there to go into your unconscious mind and reprogram your unconscious so that you project your ideal reality. And so the thing about Kundalini is when you're really having a Kundalini experience, you're not feeling anything. People think that Kundalini means you feel something. If you're feeling something from your Kundalini, it means that your energy is imbalanced. And you're having an experience because the energy is trying to balance itself. It may feel good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're evolved. The more evolved you are when it comes to Kundalini, the less you're going to feel. So it might mean that again, there's something that you want out of this that I'm not sure is benefiting you, and I encourage you to rethink it. Having said that, do whatever the hell works for you if you want to have an experience. Based on what you're asking me, might want to look into doing that stuff. What else? Question: why would someone feel shame about their birthday? I think that you know the answer to that question. It means that they have shame about their own existence. I think that's pretty clear. Eric Stoop, question: is communism the right word for the one world elite government? No. It seems quite capitalist to me. No, it's not capitalist either. Capitalism and communism no longer apply. I'll tell you what it is. It is, I guess people can come up with a new word for it. But they have a word for it. The World Economic Forum calls it a stakeholder economy. I'll write that down for you. Stakeholder economy. Stakeholder economy means that you have a stake. You have shares in the corporation. So capitalism is different. Capitalism is about individuality. Now, of course, capitalism has its dark side to it, has its extremes. Obviously, capitalism can be extremely destructive. It can create class differences and monetary differences and all kinds of stuff like that. But capitalism is based on the idea that you can, through your own hard work, go and create your own prosperity, create your own company, create your own empire. And when you have a bunch of you decide you want to make widgets, I decide I want to make widgets, and we go out there, the competition between the two of us means that we both make better widgets, and then the price, we have to compete with the price, and then that ends up making the best price for the customer. But capitalism is about individuality. It's about creating your own, living your own dream. It's what the United States was built on. The promise that everybody has the right to their own destiny. So it's not capitalism at all. It's a monopoly. These are a bunch of, well, not a bunch, it's a handful of corporations that have monopolies. Bill Gates has a monopoly on internet information. And, there's only two. There's Microsoft and Apple. That's it. So there's monopolies out there. Jeff Bezos has a monopoly on delivery service. I just got a box from Amazon of stuff that I wanted. He's got a monopoly on that. And he's part of the elite that's running the world. The drug companies, they have a monopoly on the FDA, on the CDC, on the World Health Organization, and on pharmacies and healthcare and hospitals. The drug companies have a monopoly on everything having to do with health and medicine. These are the people running the world. It's not capitalist at all. Capitalism is about competition, and it's about the individual. What these people want to do is create a stakeholder economy, which means let's watch it again. Watch it. I'll tell you exactly. We'll look at it exactly again. The World Health Organization tells you what we're going to see here is that you don't have any individuality, that you don't have a job, you don't have a business, you can't create a business, you don't create or do anything, you just simply show up, and your life becomes part of the organization of the. Okay, I must have gone past it. I did. The World Economic Forum. Where is it? There it is. All right, let's watch this. This is what it is. It's not communism. It's not capitalism. It's the next evolution of communism. It's Communism 2.0. All right. It's you will own nothing and you will be happy. Whatever you want, you'll rent and it'll be delivered by drone. The US won't be the world's leading superpower because they will destroy capitalism. A handful of countries, you can replace the word countries with corporations. That's what is going on. It's not capitalism and it's not communism. It is corporations. It is a technocracy corporation. Technocracy means, that you're ruled by the scientists who have control of technology. And so this is a biodigital matrix because what the corporations want to do is they literally want to plug you in directly to their technology. It's called transhumanism. So I don't know, transhumanism, stakeholder economy means that you have a stake in the corporation. But it also means that your life is devoted to the corporation. So if you saw in that picture that you saw that young guy, and it says, you will own nothing and you will be happy. That is not a prediction, that is a command. They're telling you, we won't allow you to own anything. And you better like it. And then they say, you'll rent, which means that somebody owns your home, but it won't be you. So it's not that nobody will own anything. It's that you won't own anything. And you'll have to rent everything from somebody else, which is the corporation. And you saw in that, when they showed the drone delivering something to the front door of what's supposed to be your house. Did you see a big, beautiful house surrounded by a yard and trees and nature? No, you saw the front door and it looks like part of a building. So it means that you'll own nothing. You won't own a home. Don't have a dream. The American dream is to have a white picket fence in your own house, right? You're not going to have that. You're not going to own anything. especially something as valuable as land. That acre of land around your home, that's too valuable. We won't let you own that. We're going to use that for something. But you will have a cubicle, you'll have a little house, not even a house, you'll have a little apartment inside a huge building, and you will be so trapped within your building that you won't even have the opportunity to go out and go to the store. You won't walk out of your house and walk down the street to the store, or you won't walk out of your house to your car or your bicycle and drive or ride. You won't go there. You'll have to stay in your little cubicle, and we will deliver everything to you, and you'll like it. A handful of countries will dominate, means that they're going to get rid of the United States. They even say the United States won't dominate. A handful of countries will dominate, which means that they're going to get rid of capitalism, because the United States is the symbol of capitalism. Capitalism is individuality. Having your own dream, creating your own life, having your own business, that's capitalism. They're going to get rid of capitalism, and they're going to get rid of the United States as a superpower, and only a handful of, quote, countries. So right now we have corporations running entire countries. I can't get into it on this channel, but there are corporations that are making public policy for multiple countries around the world that you are being required to follow. The thing that tells you you have to get the reptilian anointing or you can't work. That's coming not from the government that's threatening to take your job away. It's coming from the corporations that are telling the governments what laws to pass. The corporations are telling the governments how to control you and what to make you do. And so all it takes is for one of these corporations to come up with one suggestion, and immediately the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all immediately adopt that and do it and enact it in law. So there are no countries anymore. They're all subsidiaries. So the United States will end up, according to them, will be a subsidiary of their corporation. It's already the case. Australia is already a subsidiary of the corporations. Australia isn't making any of its own laws. And the amount of police control is unbelievable. I may upload a video, there's some videos of some guys, they're coming to people's homes. Literally, the cops are knocking on the door. And the cops are standing there, and they have pictures from closed circuit television of a guy who was apparently at a protest 6 months before, and they say, we have this picture that you posted on Facebook of you being at an illegal protest. Is that you? Which means that they're watching everything that you do. When the pandemic first hit here, there was a lockdown, and you were only allowed to have, 10 people in your home at any one given time. And some guy around here, he ended up having 20 people in his home, and they were quiet, and they were all in his home, and they were all being quiet and sitting around and whatever they were doing. Knock on the door, there's a cop there. The cop says, "Hi, you have to disperse. You have too many people." So he told everybody they had to leave, and then he asked the cop, he said, "How did you know how many people we had?" He said, "Oh, well, we're monitoring cell phone signals, and we could see that there was more than 10 cell phone signals in your house." The level of government oversight and control over you is absolutely unheard of. This is the corporation. The bio-digital matrixes, as I've shown you here, I don't have my phone here with me, but on my phone there's an app that I have to have. And I'm supposed to, every time I go to a store or a restaurant or even to a location, I'm supposed to turn the app on and let the Australian government know everywhere I go, all the time. They're monitoring everything that I do, everywhere I go. So this has nothing to do with capitalism. So I don't know where you came up with that. It's okay that you did, but And it's a higher form of communism. But communism was politicians, telling everybody you had to be part of the state machine. So you don't have a life. You have whatever job we tell you to have. You do what we tell you to do. But the corporation is about making money. This same video here, at one point it says that they're going to charge a carbon tax, like a worldwide carbon tax on people who burn fossil fuels. But again, what it means is that they're going to make money. They're not going to get rid of carbon emissions, although they're making it sound like they are. No, they're not going to get rid of carbon emissions. They're just going to charge you. If you're a company and you release carbon, they're going to charge you money for that. They're going to make money off of everything. That's why you won't be able to own anything. You'll rent it. That's why, then they go on later to say that you won't eat meat. They're even going to control what you eat. And what they want to do, Bill Gates has now become the largest farm land owner in the world or something like that. Because they're going to take over all the food supply, all that stuff that you hear about that I thought was nonsense is absolutely true. They do have the technology to put things inside of you to be able to track you everywhere that you go, to know everything about you. This is what's coming. It's not capitalism or communism. It's stakeholder economy. And the lie is they'll tell you that you have a stake in this company. The economy is the corporation, and you have a stake in it. In other words, you have shares. But there's nothing in there that says that you can go and do your own thing, have your own business, work for yourself. No, that doesn't work in a stakeholder economy. That'll create inequality. You might get rich on your own, and you might get richer than the guy next to you. We can't have that. We have to create equality. So you're going to have to be a stakeholder. You're going to have to be part of the corporation. You're going to have to live where we tell you to live. You're going to have to do what we tell you to do. You're going to have to eat what we tell you to eat. And you have to pay us money for all of it. You have to pay us for the place that we give you to live. You're going to have to pay us for the food that we make you eat. You're going to have to pay us taxes for the money that we give you, for the job that we're forcing you to have. It's all about how much money they can make off of you. So that's not capitalism. That's stakeholder economy. All right, what else? So Riho says, I feel really good. So what you're saying is you're ready to move on. So go for it. Listen, I did multiple things. I've created this synergistic approach to the spirituality that I create. So if you feel that you've reached a level where you've gotten what you want to get out of it, and you're bored, that's what you're saying. You're bored with it and you want to try something new. Go right ahead. Enjoy it. Go experience, go experiment, and then create whatever you want. And if you want to come back and do it, come back and do it. Maybe I'll still be here. All right, what else? Philip Church, all right, that's not a question. Antonio A, question. If you have a question, please write the word question in all caps so I can see it. I have seen a lot of pentacles in cinema. What do you think is the intention of ones who place it? I don't know. The thing about, sometimes you just find stuff that you look for. And I think there's a lot of people finding things, they think that, no, everything is a triangle. No, everything is a pentacle. And that means, so they're going to, these things are everywhere. You find triangles and pentacles and circles and oblongs and obelisks. I mean, these are just shapes. There's only so many shapes in the world. Does that mean that there isn't some Hollywood cult going? I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know. But I think that a lot of people, here's the thing about this. So I've said in the past, well, I've said recently that I was wrong for the right reasons. And I say that now people are right for the wrong reasons. A lot of people. A lot of you watching me are right for the wrong reasons. What I mean by that is that many people do have a lack of individuation. They do have an internal victim mentality, and they are projecting and looking for things in the world to justify their feelings of emptiness and disconnection and disempowerment and confusion. And so this is what the reptilian, that's why David Icke is so popular. David Icke is not connected to reality. He's either a con man or he's delusional or both. The instinct that you have that they're doing it to you is right. This is where I was wrong. I was wrong because I grew up in the 60s and 70s where it literally was impossible to have that kind of overarching control over people, at least in the way that it is now. I was projecting onto the world what I knew and grew up with. And I was wrong about that. But I was right about, look, you have to be able to prove this stuff. You can't just have a feeling about it and say this is what's happening. There's a lot of stuff on the web about the reptilian anointing that I find very disturbing and interesting, but I can't prove any of it. So I don't share it. I only share the stuff I can prove. So I'm like that. Somebody can say something totally outrageous and fantastical and as interesting and as frightening or entertaining as it all is. I need you to show me something. You need to show me some verifiable evidence. Otherwise, I'm not just going to believe you just because you said it. So looking for pentacles in Hollywood may be meaningless. But do I believe that Hollywood is run by the reptilian horde? Absolutely. Do I believe that the movies that are being made are being filtered through the lens of the people with the money? Do I think that stuff that ends up on the big screen is there because they, at the very least, approve of it or outright want to control you and program you? Absolutely. Does that mean that pentacles are everywhere mean something? Not necessarily. So your instinct might be right, Philip Church. Was that the one who asked about that? No, Antonio A. Your instincts might be right that they're trying to control you, manipulate you, hypnotize you, but you're looking for something, and you might find something that may be nothing, because again, a broken clock is right twice a day. Just because the clock hits 11:11 doesn't mean that something spiritual is happening. No, it's 11:11 twice every day. You happen to look at it. Some people say, and I'm seeing the numbers 11:11 everywhere. Well, yeah, you will. If you look for it, you'll see it at least twice a day. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I encourage you to try and debunk it. Let's say that I gave you this theory that pentacles in Hollywood means it is the elite in secret societies, and this is how they communicate. If I told you that, I might be right in connecting to our instinct that they are trying to manipulate us. They are trying to seduce us, and they're trying to program us. But just because you keep finding pentacles in movies doesn't mean anything's happening. It means that you're you know what I mean? So to answer your question, do I think it means anything? I don't know. Probably not. But I could be totally wrong about that. Let's see. Majda, if you have a question, write the word question. What to do to escape it? I'm from North Africa and the government started shooting on us and people with COVID. Look, I don't know. I wish I could help you. I don't know. You're asking about something that's way beyond my ability. How to escape the government that's shooting people that have COVID? I mean, that's beyond. That's the first I've ever heard of it. I totally believe it, but I'm very sorry that that's happening. I don't know how to help you. You know, the only thing I can say is that really dig down deep into your spirituality, whatever that is. Meditate, pray, do something. That's the only answer that I have for you. I'm sorry. I can't. I don't have enough experience to know what to do in that situation. Okay, question. Do you plan on making a purchase bundle of astrology reading, finding perfect career, determining what character our soul has come to play in this lifetime? I don't have that, but I have the lockdown package, which I've already given. You can go do that. Lockdown.thunderwizard.com. Or, you know, the easiest thing to do is to actually click on the link. So the link you want to click on to see what I have is to go to courses.thunderwizard.com, and you'll see whatever packages I have, which may have what you're looking for. Timothy, I did. Timothy's telling me to Google something. I've already Googled it, and it falls under the category of there's no proof behind that. Anybody can say anything. Anybody can do a presentation with pictures that look like they were taken from a microscope. Anybody can do that. That doesn't mean that it's real. So just because somebody put together a really great presentation that showed really scary looking things and they say that these are done under a microscope and here's what it doesn't, I tried to find out that there's a doctor, some Polish guy. I tried to find out who he was. I couldn't find out who he was. So this is what I'm talking about. As interesting as that is and as frightening as it is, I can't verify it. And just because we've found out that things are a lot worse than we thought and that things are beyond believable, it doesn't mean that every single unbelievable thing that somebody says is going on is the truth. So I'm not against that. It is real weird, but I don't know that it's real. You say it's real. Maybe it is. It's very weird and it's very frightening if it's true. And I'm totally open to it. But I need more proof. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't need that to reject the anointing. I mean, just what we do know about it is enough. Majda, what do I think about Tai Chi? I teach Qigong. So welcome to the channel, Majda. I encourage you to go onto my YouTube channel and watch all the videos. Watch the videos about Qigong. And, I have all kinds of things. So I encourage you to do the exercises that I teach. And then you can ask me questions about the stuff that I teach. Okay? Tai Chi is great. If you want to go do that, if you can find a teacher who can teach that, by all means, I think it's one of the most wonderful things anybody can do. All right, I don't see any more questions, and my butt is killing me from sitting in this chair for so long, so I'm gonna end it. I'm surprised to see so many people up at this time of night, I guess because other parts of the world. So that's it. Anyway, the idea is that you are an individual. And to be individuated means that you are not swayed by anything, or you're not controlled by anything outside of you. And again, I want to reiterate how important I think it is that we have compassion for those that are trying to control us and dominate us. That we have compassion for the innocent, sincere people who have been hypnotized, and have compassion for how frightened they must be, because I know how it destroyed me. When I saw the truth, it destroyed me. And I still struggle with it. I'm still on some level of, I have some PTSD over it. I'm still sort of struggling with, how do I live in this world knowing what I know? So imagine people who aren't as willing or able to handle it. I mean, I'm talking with people out there, and I know it's just like they keep going back to the old narrative, and they keep wanting to convince me that the old narrative is okay. And, I try to be as patient and as loving as I can and tell them the truth as best as I know how, as long as they keep wanting to talk to me about it. But I also have compassion because, once they find out the truth, somebody who's they and their whole family has gotten the anointing, they're going to have to look at that. Nobody wants to know that. I wouldn't want to know that. I have to have compassion for them. So we need to have compassion for all those people out there. And it's going to get to the point where I think it's going to get to the point where the truth is going to come out. I think it's going to get to the point where people can't hide from it anymore. And I feel sorry for a lot of people that are going to be really damaged as a result. And I meant it, I said it last night and I meant it. I hope to God I'm wrong. I hope we're all wrong about this. I would love to go back to that world where, none of this was real. I will not gloat or get any pleasure by being right about any of this stuff. So let's try and do what we can to help people, and try and do what we can to help people heal, and of course protect yourself in the process. Let me see, did somebody write a question here? All right, no questions. All right, that's it for me, guys. All right, take care. Remember, resistance is not futile.